All I want to see is progression. Community Shield means nothing.
And I do think winning becomes a habit, like losing becomes a habit.
I didn't like seeing midfield of Vieira, Jorginho, Havertz away at West Ham in the Carabao Cup. Now, in the meantime, we were playing Champions League football, and I think we'd had an okay start to the season. But for me, that felt like we were throwing it away a little bit too much.
You know, if you're going to have Fabio Vieira and spend £30 million on him, you got to trust him in other games, but the Carabao Cup. You know, take a risk sometimes.
Welcome back to AFTV, everyone. It's been a couple of weeks, actually a little bit more than a couple of weeks, since the end of the season, and we heard Mikel Arteta say, we want more and we're going to get it. But how are we going to get it? That's what we're going to talk about here with Curtis, with Bavs, and with Christian Ty. Welcome, everyone, to the channel. Welcome to a big discussion. We've got a lot to get into. We've got a few questions that will lead the discussion, but the overarching discussion is, look, fair play to the team. They've definitely got better. They've improved massively over the last few years. 2 back-to-back title races. But we want, well, not just the big ones. We want trophies. We want silverware to, I think, accompany a side that I think we all believe deserve it, really. So we're going to go into all that. When we talk about next season being a must, I'm going to come to Baz first. What are we talking? We're hearing that a lot.
Yeah,
We're talking about on Forever Arsenal. Turkish have been saying it, and I get it. But what does we must mean? What are we talking about there?
I mean, I always say trophies, right? And I don't think it is just as simple as trophies. You can win the Carling Cup next year or the Carabao Cup, and fans won't be satisfied. I think it's a title. We want a big trophy, a Champions League or a title, because we feel like the process has come to the point now we need something that's big that we can celebrate and have parades about. And that's not going to be the Carabao Cup. It definitely wasn't the Community Shield, and not the FA Cup either. So I
Should have been in my house.
I hate the argument about.
I celebrated that draw, mate.
The draw.
Jesus.
You know what I mean? The deal.
Community Shield.
But yeah,
Get 1 minute into it.
Yeah, I feel like fans want
that
that. They want that peak moment that like we are the best team in the land, and that's what it is next season. So that's what we need to be. That's what we're aiming for next season is a title, Premier League title at least.
I just want it on record that I went to Soccer Aid, Stamford Bridge, and they did have all their trophies.
Yeah. Listen, I was there as
They did have
well.
the Community Shield. I'm just saying. They also had a Champions League, irritatingly. But you know,
they got their trophies everywhere. If you noticed that, like every corner they got that trophy, that
Don't
trophy.
blame
They just want to remind themselves that we won this. I mean,
I think if you've got a Champions League and a Premier League, you can be more shameless about the Community Shield. I think you could be like, well, listen, we got a lot of wins, but when you're getting in it because you finished second, anyway, sort of Community Shield discussion. Christian, mate, we must. I'm going to put that same question to you. We're going to delve into it a little bit more as well when we've heard everyone's answers. But what are we talking about next year? Does second place? No one's saying we're happy with that, but does it feel different when you've at least got a trophy to accompany it? So how are you valuing the other trophies, and what are you seeing as like the real test, the litmus test for Arsenal next season?
I mean, all I want to see is progression. Community Shield means nothing. I want us. It means nothing. It's a nice day out. It's cool. You see Odegaard and these players hold it up, but in reality, it's nowhere near a major. It's nowhere near even the Carabao Cup. So, I want to see us progress. I think we did 2 years ago to last year. We definitely progressed. More points, more wins. Even the players we're going for. I think the signing of Declan Rice puts us in a different category of clubs where we can go and get the best players. And that's the first time I've ever seen Arsenal be in these conversations. We were saying it off air just now. What players can we not go for apart from players that play for big rivals and Kylian Mbappe? And I genuinely think we're in the conversation for a lot of these players. Like, obviously we know Sesko's not coming, but if Isak is going to move, we're in the conversation. If these big players are going to go, we should be in the conversation now. So, progression, buying the best players, challenging on all fronts is important. I don't want to see us going out of Carabao in third and FA Cup in third and fourth rounds. I want to see us going for all of them. So if we progress, even if we don't win anything, if we get to a Champions League final, if we come second, if we get to a FA Cup final, I will be happy.
Curtis, I think he's absolutely right. Apart from rivals, players, and Mbappe, but we tried to force the Mbappe conversation.
That's the question. It didn't come how I wanted it to.
We all hoped for at one point.
We all tried.
Of course.
Well, what is it? Mikel, one player might be available.
I can't speak about other clubs. Cheers, Mikel. I'll fly over.
Thanks for that stupid question, Curtis. On to the next. Cecil, you're up.
Don't bother coming back next year.
Look, mate, trophies.
Yeah.
What are we talking about when it comes to that? Do you really... Okay, we all put the Premier League and the Champions League in a different conversation to the other two, although I love the FA Cup and I don't disrespect its heritage and its prestige, but we know the big two. But how much do the other two change? And to be fair, some people say it's unfair to even group the FA Cup with the Carabao, but whatever. how much do they change your complexion of Arsenal's season? How differently would you feel about this season gone by if we had one of those two accompanied with a final day title race?
Do you know what? I think it would have been a step in the right direction, because equally, a lot of these players haven't won a trophy at Arsenal. And I do think winning becomes a habit, like losing becomes a habit. So I think you look at somebody like Saka or Odegaard, to win a cup final, you're going to have a big moment. Let's say Saka scores a winning goal against Liverpool at Wembley. That's a huge moment for him. And ultimately, as fans, even though we kind of turn our nose up at some of these trophies, we all remember the FA Cup final when Aubameyang chips the keeper and we win it. Those feelings live with you forever as a fan. So I do believe the top two trophies are the two we have to prioritise, because I think the amount of time that the manager's been here and the investment, you don't have 5 years at a club to say, I'm aiming for the Carabao Cup. But equally, I do think we have to respect those trophies, and players do need to learn how to win. And I think at times in the league run, we were a little bit short because maybe we don't know how to win at times. So I think prioritise the big two, but also respect the other two trophies as well.
Let's open it to the floor then. I've got all your thoughts on this, and I sort of agree with what you're all saying, but prioritising, like, what does that mean? What are we talking about when, I didn't like seeing a midfield of Vieira, Jorginho, Havertz away at West Ham in the Carabao Cup. Now, in the meantime, we were playing Champions League football, and I think we'd had an okay start to the season, but for me, that felt like we were throwing it away a little bit too much. No physicality in midfield, a guy who wasn't a number 8 to me, Vieira who'd come in from the cold. So what are we talking about when we're saying prioritising? What is the balance? And we know that throughout the season there'll be context to these things, but I'm going to open it to anyone to jump in. What do we mean when we're talking about prioritising?
I think we need to prioritise getting our entire squad on an elite level. And by elite level, I don't mean you could play two teams two different teams in the Prem and they'll both win it. I don't mean that. I was talking to my dad about this. Man City's bench should be our benchmark. If we have a player that isn't good enough to get on Man City's bench, he shouldn't be good enough to get on our bench. Now, if you look at the players that we have, Reece Nelson wouldn't get on City's bench, so he shouldn't be on our bench. Smith Rowe, would he go on City's bench?
I think he might.
Maybe Smith Rowe before the injuries, maybe. Smith Rowe now, I don't think he'd get anywhere near. Fabio Vieira, I don't think he would. Would Zinchenko get on City's bench?
Well, we got him off their bench.
That's the thing, we got him off their bench.
Like him back?
No, we're all right, mate. Okay.
There's a thing, right? I've heard a lot of people at Real Madrid talk about this. Real Madrid, when they sell a player, sometimes, oh my God, why would they sell that? When they sold Ozil, oh my God, why would they? There's always a reason that they're selling these players that fans and people around the team might not know. There's a reason they sold Zinchenko. There's a reason they sold Jesus. If those two players were key players for them and Pep wanted them as part of that squad, they would have stayed there. There's a reason Zinchenko left. And if he's not good enough to get on City's bench, which is the one team in the Prem and in the world that we're chasing, maybe in the world, you could say Real Madrid as well, then he shouldn't be good enough to get on our bench. That's where I think we have to improve. Man City's bench should be the benchmark for us.
But they were on the bench. Like, they were on City's bench.
Yeah.
And Jesus, to be fair, when we signed him, had actually been starting quite a lot of games in the run-in. So we didn't sign some out-of-form striker.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not saying that they don't play some big part in next season at some point, but it's just not relying and depending on them, especially because of the injury news as well that we seem to get on a monthly basis from the both of them. So I get what you mean. It's at least getting to City's level.
Yeah, of course it is, but the context is we're getting towards that anyways. I mean, last year Partey was a starter, now he's a bench player for Arsenal. Or, towards the end of the season he was. Jesus, Zinchenko, these are players that were starters previously, and now even Gabriel Martinelli that can sit on the bench. So step by step we're getting that is the next step of being City's level, but they've been fighting for titles for like 5, 6, 7 years, so they've got that advantage over us anyways in terms of experience. But we're not far off, and that's why I feel like I hate that we need to make the squad more competitive and raise the floor of the squad as well, but I also want a ceiling raiser that we're in the Champions League, we can go to him, he can provide a moment, he can be our Vinicius Junior and go and score a goal and produce something out of nothing. I think that for me is as big a priority as raising the floor of the squad, because the Carabao Cup's nice and likewise the FA Cup, but I want to win the Champions League, I want to win the Premier League. That's the main objective.
I think when you talk about raising the level of the bench is true, and what you were saying, because you look at City, they rotate in cups and they're bringing in Alvarez, Ortega, Akanji. They're top players who would start in a lot of teams. We've been bringing in El Nenis and Cedrics and players like that. So I think if we get better players in the first team and then you push players out of the first team onto the bench, the level doesn't change a lot. So you can go to West Ham, make 6 changes and still beat them, where we're putting players on the pitch, you're going, he's not ready for that. So I do think we've just got to improve that whole squad, because big clubs can chase 4 trophies in one season. We don't have to say just those 2 and let those 2 go. 'Cause if you don't get those 2, you've let them ones go as well. So
well, I keep saying, I mean, did you guys see Jurgen Klopp with his? I think they made a really cool gift for him when he left, and he had all the different trophies like in a line that he'd won. And it's so funny because judging by how I feel like some Arsenal fans talk in terms of the big 2 and sort of forget the other 2. Well, if Klopp thought the same way, it'd just be like a little wooden plank with sort of the Champions League Premier League. Obviously, he'd probably still be thought about in a very similar way because of what he did with Man City against Man City and winning the Champions League. But it's stacked with other trophies. In there is 2 Carabao Cups. There is an FA Cup as well. There is all the European competitions you win post Champions League, and of course, you've got to win the Champions League to get to those. But I just keep thinking that Arsenal need to get their squad. And when we talk about prioritising next season, I think momentum breeds winning as well. I know we talk about tiredness and managing the squad, but look at City en route for the treble. Look at Liverpool en route for the quadruple. They kept winning those games. They got to that point of the season where it was game win, game win, game win. And they just kept the momentum going. I don't want to see us fall out of these competitions. Honestly, people, I think the most irritated I was on AFTV and in a fan cam this year was post Liverpool, the FA Cup defeat. And it should have been maybe Villa, and that did hurt. I mean, that hurt more because I just knew the title was gone then. But the most annoyed, like, I can forgive an off day, but when it's your 3rd defeat in a row and it's at home in the FA Cup and you've gone out your 2nd cup competition and then basically your only hope of silverware is beat Man City, who've won it 3 years in a row, end up winning it 4, or win the Champions League against Real Madrid and Man City, and we've never won it before, and Bayern Munich. I just thought, well, that's it. That's probably a trophy this season coming again.
Yeah,
I know what you're saying. I think it's interesting because there was a frustrating game, don't get me wrong, but I think we were the better team in that game. I think we created enough chances.
That's true, we
created enough chances to maybe win the game. Obviously, we're playing against Liverpool, who are obviously a top team as well. So I could kind of handle that one. But West Ham, although it was a cup game as well, we weren't the better team in that game. We rotated and it was obvious our squad is not good enough to go on all fronts. So yeah, for some reason that hurt more than the Liverpool game, and I think it is that I can accept an off day. If we play well and we lose, which happened to us a few times this season, you're going to get a few of them in across the season. But yeah, when I see us go out, play a weakened squad, and it's players that haven't played in 6 weeks and they don't perform, it's like, well, there's a reason these players aren't performing, because we're not rotating, because we don't have the quality in the Prem. So these players are going in cold, expected to pull out a big performance. If we had, say, Elise as backup for Saka, for example, and they were rotating in the Prem, and then one of them starts in the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, they're not going in cold. They're gonna, they've got minutes in their legs. They know what it is to play in this system. Whereas if Reece Nelson hasn't played in 6-7 weeks, and you throw him in and say put in a big performance, it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I think that's the next step is trust. If you're going to have Fabio Vieira and spend £30 million on him, you got to trust him in other games, but the Carabao Cup, take a risk sometimes. And we saw it in parts, at the start of the season, and he got injured, so that's a bit unfair. But I feel like the best way to improve the squad is improve the first team and make those players the bench players, like we did last year.
Yeah.
So imagine next year you've got the likes of Trossard, not as a starter but off the bench again, and players like that. And we're talking about Bukayo Saka backups and stuff, and we talk about Elise, and that sounds amazing on paper, but why would he want to come to Arsenal and just sit on the bench? Because he's not starting over Saka, who's basically fit every single game. So it's about maybe signing maybe a more versatile player that can play on the right hand side and rotate with him. But I definitely hear the fact that I want to see Mikel trust the players off the bench more. Smith-Rowe came off, was it against Luton, man of the match performance, started that game and got nothing else after that. And it seems like whenever Arsenal are losing, Mikel makes the change. So he can see the change. He doesn't make it when it's being a bit more proactive. And I just want to see more trust. If you got Fabio Vieira there and we didn't see him next to nothing towards the end of the season, that's your signing. I want to see you back him.
I just want to say quickly there, how you were saying about Elise, and I get your point, but if you think about it over the years and you look at City and you look at Arsenal, like, why should we not be able to go to Elise, pull him out of Palace and bring him to Arsenal? Saka's there. If you go to any elite club, you would expect to have competition. If he goes to Man City, they play Foden on the right, so what, are you going to hide from the top clubs? Like when we won titles in the past, Henry, but you had Wiltord and Carnu. So I get your point. Elise might look and go, well, Saka's there, I'm not going to play every week. But I'd expect Elise to come to Arsenal and say, I'm going to get him out of the team. So I think we have to actually change that mentality and say, I'll go to Palace and take their best player off.
Yeah. We also know what Arteta can do with players. There's no reason Elise doesn't come. And he goes, right, Saka's there on the right, but Martinelli's not performing on the left. Maybe that's a position for you.
Yeah,
you know, he's great at adapting players to different positions. So
I just feel like Saka's a player that he's like our De Bruyne, Haaland type player, the one that you don't drop. And that's where, City don't sign a De Bruyne backup. They've got players that can play there, but they don't sign a direct replacement for him. That's what I felt with Elise's case. If you got Chelsea after him, he's probably going to start there. And other clubs like that, where you'll earn a similar amount of money. Yeah, you might not compete for a title like Arsenal. You're going to go to those clubs instead. But yeah, we can definitely attract him. I don't question our pull at all. It's just a matter of prioritising the actual squad players that actually, are a bit more unreliable, that will get injured. And on the left-hand side, Martinelli's another one I'm looking at.
And this is, there's actually a part 2 to all this coming, people, where we're going to be talking about transfers, giving the players we want, and also coming up with what our potential sales could look like. So stay tuned for that on AFTV. Subscribe to the channel so you are kept up to date when that upload comes. But it's all about getting the squad in a position to be competitive on all fronts. I want to, and it sounds crazy, but I want to be excited about the Carabao Cup draw next season. I want to be excited about the FA Cup third round draw. I want to go into all these competitions going, here's a chance at silverware. And yeah, I want the big 2 because the club is defined by the big 2, let's be real. But the others matter, they do still matter massively. I don't think we can just shrug off other trophies as, it's infuriating, but I hear it listening to United fans going, well, we finished 8th, we had a better season because we won silver. I'm not going to delve into all that, but did they have a more successful one? I'm sorry, they did. They lifted a trophy. They lifted. Now, I want our future over theirs any day of the week, and I'm confident our next 3, 4, 5 years will look better, but they had that day. They had the day that we're all building towards having, which is that day at Wembley lifting silverware. We wanted the day at Wembley, but for the other competition.
Exactly.
And
that's the key part, is that we want trophies, but we also want to be the best team in the land.
There's that.
And United want that. City were that. That's what I want to be, is the best. I want to win as the best, not win as a team that's sitting 8th and not really fighting for the other major honours. And I get it. The FA Cup is important. We've seen the FA Cup more than any other team.
Yeah,
but
it's our cup.
I've seen that. I want more than that now. I want the Champions League and Premier League.
Yeah, I hear it.
But then the question is, what... And I struggle with this because I almost go back and forth in my head of thinking, if we have a great season next year but we don't win anything, will I be happy? If I enjoy watching my team and we win another 27 games in the league, and I go to home games and I get moments like the Reece Nelson winner and all of these moments where I'm loving being an Arsenal fan and watching my team and celebrating, and I feel part of the club and I'm in love with the club and the players again, but we don't win anything, is that enough? Or would I rather take a season where we lose a few games, we're challenging for top 4, but we win the FA Cup? Because in my head, I don't know which lasts longer. I've got memories of FA Cups where we're finishing 8th, and they're great memories, and I've celebrated them. But again, it only lasts a day or 2. You celebrate it, you remember it for longer, but the feeling in the moment of winning that is a day or 2. Whereas there are games like the Reece Nelson...
I get what you're saying. It's a part of our history. It's a part of our history that will never go. We'll always remember it, like you touched on. But it's also like... It's 1 or 2 great days.
It's an individual.
But then you look back at, okay, now what happened the rest of the time?
Yeah.
Because ultimately you're still thinking about making that really better.
And I think realistically, Arsenal, with the size of the club, we should be able to do both.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We should be able to challenge for the league and win an FA Cup. And I feel like the last 2 years have been progressive. We can look back and say we've made a lot of progress there, but I feel like now it's time for the success. They always spoke about trust the process, and I feel like they've had that time to sort of build it and structure it now. And we're all sort of saying, okay, deliver something to us now for us to sort of celebrate, because ultimately what separates a big club from a smaller club is what you win. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of good teams in the Premier League that don't win anything. Do you know what I mean? So I think it is time for us to... If
you go... I think when we signed Timber and they released a welcome video, or behind the scenes, I think it might have been. I always love those videos because you get a lot of insight. And they had... I think someone caught that on a board in maybe Arteta's office. Yeah, they had the FA Cup, the Champions League, and the Premier League. And I'm sure the Community Shield was snuck behind somewhere. I'm sure they have that out there too. But they had those there, and I think it was like a reminder. It was like and I think Fabregas has spoken about there being an empty cabinet for the Premier League.
They've got it literally as you go in the
So this is
hollowed out Prem.
So you've got some insight on this, Babs. Talk us through it, because you.
90K.
Yeah. Well, it's transfer season, so go on. Talk to us about your
I saw
experience.
Mbappe and it was getting,
Was he having his medical?
His little brother.
He was having his medical. Yeah, his shirt was there as well. No, look, it was nice. It was nice.
Sat there thinking, Mikel,
I said Kylian, not Ethan.
Yeah, he just said Mbappe.
I'll see you in LA, Mikel. So I'll ask you about it again. Oh, God.
No, it was a very good experience, and I think what you realise straight away is how lucky those players are to be working there every single day. Like, honestly, the facilities are insane, and there's a lot of reminders. That's one thing I noticed straight away. There's a lot of quotes literally in every single corner to remind you, to prompt your mind from the academy level up to the main first team, and even from like little details where in the first team the changing room numbers are in gold, whereas the academy are in red. And if you make a first team appearance, it becomes gold as well. It's an incentive. You want those little things, and there's a lot of quotes when you go into when you go into the little where you obviously look at the game after and analyze the stuff and stuff like that. But the academy room, there's a lot of quotes around you. Will you make it into the first team? And then all around them is players that have made it into the first team to show them as a pathway there as well. So it's a lot of like thought-provoking stuff around the ground, and a lot of respect as well. Like, you can't wear shoes in training. You have to wear like the sliders they give you, or you have to cover your shoes. Little things like that. I think Arsene Wenger brought that in from Japan, and even like Win the dog. I met her. I met Win.
Oh wow! Don't tell Turkish. Turkish hates that.
It was.
I'm joking.
She was nice. She loves attention. I'll tell you that.
Really?
Yeah, loves attention. But yeah, it was a nice experience. But also, what you notice is there's a lot of empty spaces they've left to write in trophies. So they have a wall of where every time Arsenal win a trophy, they've got the squad underneath it, and there's a massive white wall where they've left for more trophies. So they're trying to provoke the players to go, look, we want more. Now it's your responsibility to go out there and give us those trophies. And to remind them, there's a lot of obviously past players as well, but there's an era that we kind of go past. You've got the Invincibles, but there's nothing really successful after that. Yeah. And then you had the wall of the players past that were great, and you had like Coquelin on that and stuff like that, and going like, we really suffered for a while, but now we're getting to this stage. But like, it was like, even so, it was some Adebayor's on that, and I'm going, why is he there? But yeah, I feel like they're trying to get the players to think about trophies and visualize it as much as you can. And when you walk into the ground and you see the photo of Wenger, I think he's just smiling. You're going like, there's history here, but then you got the empty title thing there. If you look at that and you go, I want to fill that, I want to put a title in that.
That's our problem.
It's nice, yeah.
Our problem is the history is becoming real history. It's not becoming.
Yeah.
We need recent history, you know.
And they're trying to do that. That's what I think they're trying to do that.
Like, I'm 27 years old. I was 20 years ago we won the Premier League. I was 7 years old. I don't remember that.
I don't remember it. No,
I remember watching
when
we were in the Champions League final. I remember watching my dad more than I was watching the game. Yeah. Like, his reaction. I was 12 years old. No, I was 10 years old, sorry.
Yeah.
Like, I want that feeling. I want the feeling my dad had watching the game. Like, I want to see us win a Prem. I want to see these players lifted.
I said that one time. I said, I wonder if the Invincibles ended up weighing the club down a little bit, because they reached such a pinnacle. It was like, and then we fell off, and we're always trying to, like, you know, even the Invincible kit, we're always talking about that. We do need, like you said, we need to create that. You know, we don't, because I used to say growing up, Liverpool History Channel, they always talk about Dalglish and that.
Yeah.
But now I'm getting into arguments with people, and I'm going, yeah, but you never had Thierry Henry. They're going, that was 20 years ago. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right, actually. You're right, it's gone quick.
Moving to the Emirates kind of paused us as a competitive side. And it took us a long time to become competitive again. Only till the last 2 years we got there again. And I felt now we've unpaused as a club. We're actually progressing and going, okay, we're seriously fighting for a title now. It's not just, we're deluded we might win a title. We actually could win a title next year. And going into it, one of the favourites as well. And I feel like that's what we're building now. Is a lot of the current players, if they do win a title, a Champions League as well, they could go down as greats. You know, Saka and Odegaard and co.
Can I ask a question? How long does Arteta get? I'll say my piece first.
What's the full question? Because
how long does he get without having won a major before we
maintaining
go?
This level though.
Maintaining this level. How long does he get before he?
You go first.
Yeah. So on me,
go on.
Like we're saying, it's only the last couple of years that we've really seen us back as an elite team, challenging in competitions, back in the Champions League after 7-8 years, finishing on 89 points, winning more games than the Invincibles. It's only because Manchester City are in this league that we aren't champions. Now, I have two ways to look at it. We don't have any right to win the league next season. It's like if you were in a race with Usain Bolt and you were the second fastest in that race, and someone goes to you, you have to win this race. Otherwise, there's pressure on you. But it's like saying, but the fastest man in the world is in my race. We have the best team in the world in our league. So for me, if Mikel doesn't win it next year and doesn't win it the year after, the conversation will then become, okay, is he the man?
Yeah.
But then the conversation has to go to, is there another man that can hold the levels that he has brought to this club and improve it to beat the Usain Bolt, which is Man City? And I don't know if that guy's out there.
It's a huge question.
It is.
And as we start to answer it, like, it's one of those questions which is almost like, I mean, no offense when I say this, because I was actually going to ask this question anyway.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
But it's almost a slightly, I don't want to say pointless question, but it's a bit like, we have no idea what 12 months' time looks like, does it?
Yeah, it's true.
We just, if Saka, Ødegaard, Saliba, Gabriel, Raya all get injured next season long term, and we finish second, I'm not sitting there going, get rid of him. But at the same time, that's extreme context. But sometimes extreme context plays a part. It's a really, I'll get your answers first, but I think I just want to come in on that question and just say that it's one of those where we can have a good idea as to how a season might play out because we've seen enough football or whatever. But it's just also still so hard to know what in 12 months' time things look like. If Xabi Alonso goes on to do another unbeaten season and wins the Champions League, we're going, this is the next Pep Guardiola, do everything to get him. Like, I don't know, there's different concepts. But Baz, I mean, I say it's a part weird question, but it's also a good question because I think the hierarchy will also be thinking we need to get it over the line.
Yeah.
So where are you with it, Baz?
I mean, in terms of Mikel Arteta and how much time I give him is as long as we stay at the level we are right now is a bare minimum, right? And go beyond that. We talk about letting Mikel Arteta go, almost sacking him. Why would you sack Mikel Arteta? Do you think finishing second is a sackable offence? That's what I'm talking about in terms of competing with Pep, of all people. I guess if another team was to win a title apart from City and Arsenal, it would hurt, and then you start to question it. But the question, it's a right thing to say of who do you replace him with then? You can't just go and give me a big name. I want someone that can play also a style of play that makes us competitive over a season. You look at Carlo Ancelotti, for example. I'd love him at Arsenal, right? And especially in the Champions League. But in the Premier League and his style of football, without the likes of Bellingham and Vinicius, could he play that style of football Mikel has with the players that we have against Pep? And I don't know, I'm not sure. So that's where it's always a bit of a weird question for me that we're even talking about sacking Mikel Arteta at this stage. I guess if we regress next year, finish outside of the top four, win no trophies whatsoever, you can talk about that. But we could win a trophy next year, finish fifth, and you still want to sack him, right? So I want to still compete for the title as a bare minimum. And that for me is still kind of crazy because a couple of years ago, we weren't talking about a title. It was, could we make top four? Maybe we're not quite sure. Yeah. So I feel like with the way Mikel has done for Arsenal, he deserves at least 1 or 2 more years minimum. But yeah, if I see us regress and I then see another option going, he's the clear and obvious candidate to replace him, go for it. But unless I see a Pep Guardiola in the market, I'm not going to just change him for no reason. Curtis,
I think it's fair to say, right, with Arteta, you've never been quite as convinced as other people. But I also think you've actually been fair in that when he's performed well, you've never had a problem saying he's doing well. Yeah. Now that the few weeks, at that end of the season, the disappointment of not getting it done has passed, where do you land on it? Where, and I'm talking not just on Arteta, but you're feeling about the team and its trajectory. But starting with the manager, where are you with Mikel Arteta? What do you have he likes the word non-negotiable. Do you have non-negotiables for him as a fan?
Listen, I think every Arsenal fan can see there's been progress, whether you're a big fan of him or not, like the way we're playing football, the style of football, the feeling amongst the club, having our players tied down to long contracts and things like that.
Having good players
as well.
We sort of overlooked that. We actually have players we're proud of.
Yeah.
Coquelin was on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. That wall's going to have better players on it. For me, I mean, listen, again, context comes into account. We don't know how next season's going to look, but where I'm at with Arteta, I think he has to deliver a major this season. And I know, like you said, we don't have a divine right to just say we're going to finish above Manchester City, but I think this is his 6th season at the club, 5th full season. So he had the half and then the foot. And I think, okay, the last 2 years we've competed, but we still got to look at that and go, 6 seasons at one of the biggest clubs in Europe. depending on what he did win, but at the moment, obviously, won FA Cup and Community Shields. I still believe that at this stage we could have won more silverware. Now, he might be saying, look, I'm not really focusing on the FA Cup and Carabao Cup, but I do think winning those trophies more would have helped to maybe win the Premier League as well. People say you can't replace him, but then we brought him from nowhere in terms of management. He was an assistant manager. So I don't think we have to have this fear that, if Arteta was to go, we can't replace him, because sometimes I do think some managers, they build the foundation and then somebody else sometimes comes in and sort of gets you over the finish line. I know we've spoken about Liverpool a lot and said Brendan got this exciting team, but he couldn't win the trophy. Klopp came in, got them over the finish line. And I know everybody says, Pep's here, and I'm with all of you. Pep's the best manager on the planet. It's not easy to get past him. But as you said, Klopp's leaving Liverpool now, 7 trophies in 9 years. The majority of that time, Pep's been here. So you can win trophies. Sometimes you've actually got to win trophies around Manchester City. So, all right, they win the league, but if they get knocked out the FA Cup, we should win the FA Cup. If they get knocked out the Champions League, okay, Madrid are still there. It's difficult. But I still think amongst this Pep Guardiola era, you can win major trophies. Wenger won trophies when Ferguson was here. Mourinho came here, won trophies. So my expectation might be a little bit high with him, but I kind of think now he's got to.
But you said the 2 majors. If he finishes second again, takes it to the final day and wins the FA Cup, are you looking at and going, progress, okay, go again? Because for me, I mean, I just can't be mad at falling shy to probably the greatest Premier League manager of all time. I think I have Fergie there, but as a coach, I mean, Pep Guardiola is so special, one of the greatest managers ever. If you've just fallen short of that and won an FA Cup, for me, that for me is you've actually done all you can to have a successful
my thing
season
is
as
always
possible.
though, at what point does that stop? Like, because people every year say, but he's done that. So at what point do we go, actually, he does have to win something?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But it's all about, for me, it's all about what's out there, because I'd almost, this might sound like a really harsh statement, right? But if there's a manager out there that we know is the guy and can get it done, then I actually think, I mean, there's the argument, you keep waiting for Mikel because he's still a young manager, keep getting better, but I'm much more inclined to go, but we could have that guy. That guy's not out there. Ancelotti's at Real Madrid. Pep Guardiola obviously wouldn't come. Jurgen Klopp isn't going to manage another club in England. So we're hoping but the questions around managers is Nagelsmann going to be that guy? Didn't quite work for him at Bayern Munich. Is Tuchel that guy? Who else is there out there?
But could you not get Alonso? Could you not get
Alonso's one, I think.
Ancelotti might leave Madrid next year.
But the only thing I would say is we talked about Mikel maybe laying the foundations. Those managers will have their own styles of play. There will be players that are very integral to Mikel Arteta that won't be integral to them, and that's why I'm not really on the side of the argument of he'll lay the foundations and someone will just get over the line. He'll have his own style of players.
But also,
every manager has that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you there, but also, like, these foundations that are in place are what the players are who we are putting in these conversations, like Saka, like Saliba and Gabriel, who are making Premier League team of the season. I mentioned Saka, Erdegaard, like these players that are getting in there, Ben White, they're doing it under Mikel's system and his culture and his philosophy and his environment. And I keep thinking, you can roll the dice, and it might go great. But if we are getting better and better and better, I think I need to get to the point where there's regression to go, I'm willing to pull the trigger. Unless, that's such a horrible saying, but like I'm willing to,
we're talking about a manager that had, for Arsenal's history, most ever wins, most ever goals, I think most ever points or 1 point off.
1 point
off. So the fact that we're talking about sacking him is crazy to me.
Well, we're not talking about sacking him,
but like moving him on
targets,
right?
Aren't we?
And I feel
talking about what is the
target is a world title
minimum.
for sure. Bare minimum, that is that. And if we don't get Champions League, you sack him. That's for sure, right? That's the guarantee for me at least.
Top 4.
Yeah, top 4.
So you keep him if he gets top 4, even if it's fourth.
I think next year, for example, with Pep still being there, if we finish second, I'll accept that. 3rd and 4th, I start to question it. 50's gone,
with Pep
right?
there,
50's gone, right?
You want to win it while Pep's here, don't you? You
Of course
don't want to wait for him to go.
Last year,
If we get to next year and Pep wins his final title at City and his final year, which is very plausible with Pep, right? And we finish a point off, or even behind a goal difference, it's possible. We get to the Champions League final but losing the final. You set Mikel Arteta then.
Obviously, like we said, context is different.
Yeah,
You get to a
So that's what I'm
Champions
saying.
League final
I
and you're
want to
like-
be like we were last year.
But I think,
at bare minimum.
you know, they say if you're standing still, you know, you're not moving forward.
Of course.
We can't. I just think to get back to the top, we've got to have that mindset that we have to win. And that's a high demand and a high
Does he not
pressure.
encompass that more than most though at the club? That's the one thing I'll say.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not. Sounds like I'm trying to make loads of excuses for him. I mean, the work he's done has been unbelievable, and like we keep saying, context. But again, he is pushing it more than anything. Like when he said, I think Dan Potts spoke about it in his fan cam, or Turkish definitely did as well. When he ended his the big sort of speech to the crowd, saying, "Look, we're all gutted." Ødegaard was gutted. There wasn't that sense of like, we knew we probably weren't going to win it today, but fair play, everyone. You know, we saw the mentality from them we won. We know this is a young manager. We know that this is actually still a young team despite sprinkling more experience in there. I just feel like if we operated on the level that, well, if you don't win one of the big two, then sorry, we're going to try with someone else. I just think, I personally think we'd live with regret. I think we'd personally live with regret that a young manager, a young team weren't allowed to just keep building and keep building.
But you know how football is. Football doesn't wait for you. There
right.
will be a period in time if we don't win something where Madrid will go, we'll take Saliba. Or somebody will
true.
take
That's a
Saka,
good
or
point.
somebody will take Ødegaard, because players' football careers are not long. They're going to accept it for a couple of years. We're close, I'll wait. But then eventually, you go on international duty, Saka and Foden's going play the year, title, won the Champions League. They want that. Every
Saliba's
player
not starting for France.
Yeah, they might be saying, well, if you go to Madrid, you're in the French team. Do you know what I mean? So we also can't. We've been in this position before. We've seen Van Persie's and that leave because I know the time period is different, but that's why we lost players. So
I think that's the key point you said.
fair point.
Is a couple of years. That's what it takes. A couple of years of not winning a title is when that conversation starts happening. We're not there right now, and that's why when I hear fans talk about get him gone next season, I'm going, well, let's see what we will get next season, and then from there, can we build on the day that I don't think we can win a title under Mikel Arteta? I want him gone as well. But for now, I believe. I think most people believe.
I believe we can win a title on him. Do you think we can, Christian?
Of course I do. I think he is the man. I think in the next 3 years we'll at least win a Prem. But that's a very, very good point, that our players could start getting picked off. So
I didn't think of it that way.
No, there's definitely pressure. Maurizio Pochettino, when he was at Spurs, they gave him 5 years, 2014 to 2019. Got him to a Champions League final. I think they finished on 86 or 87
Two title
points.
races.
Yeah.
2 title races, and they got rid of him. That they bought in Mourinho, who obviously is a winner. It wasn't the right move. So I think we can
I feel
see
like
from
that's
that.
Tottenham, though, innit? You
Yeah,
know,
it is.
I know what you're saying.
But they were going in the right direction,
it's not as
and
simple
they
as
got
getting a winner.
impatient.
Yeah.
They got impatient because they had this brilliant team, Dele Alli, all
Just
these
wanna
young
win something,
players, going, cool, right, we've got this team in place now. All we've got to do is bring in a winner, and we're going to win everything. We're going to go for it.
And they didn't back him properly. They went summers without spending. So actually, we're going to start leaning into that now because we are, like I said, there's a second video coming out, so look out for that. Before we do, we're going to talk about Edu. Just very quickly, before I do, Arteta, you think he can win the title with Arsenal?
Absolutely.
I think he can win the title.
of course.
Do you think he can win the title with Arsenal?
I'm unsure.
You're unsure.
Yeah.
Fair enough. We'll put it out to the comment section below. Everyone, let us know. Is Mikel Arteta the guy to deliver one of the big two? 3 out of 4 of us, or 3.5? Saying he can. Let's talk Edu to round off the show. Pochettino got Tottenham to a point, and I'm not going to lie, when I hear people going, Arsenal in danger of just being what that Tottenham team were, it's hard to argue with that, because you're like, okay, no, I think we're better, and I think we've got a better platform, I think we're going in a better direction, but no trophies for this group, no trophies for that group. So
We've got one actually, so we do have one.
But that was the other group.
Kind of the old.
Oh,
The Emery team.
So
it was
I remember
Mikel,
Pepe
man.
smacking one in the top corner offside of that final.
Yeah, I
so,
remember that.
Yeah, Ainsley Maitland-Niles inverted wing back in that game.
Bellerin.
So, oh god,
that
very
wasn't
different
this
team.
group.
No.
It was Arteta's.
Yeah, it was first season.
It's fully his FA Cup, may I say. A lot of people like to go, that was Emery's FA Cup.
Yeah.
Absolutely
No, it was
nonsense.
his-
It was Arteta.
He's got a trophy,
He managed the
that's
first
right,
game of that tournament, that competition, and he won it. But Edu, it's not just for him to release the funds, but he's got a lot of big work to do again, as he does every summer, with Arteta, with Tim Lewis, with the Cronkies, with everyone involved, Richard Garlick, to make sure that the squad goes into next season better than it did last season.
Yeah.
Now, I think towards the end of this current season, I started to see how our signings elevated us, especially Declan Rice. But it took a good 4 months to see, was Raya an improvement? Was Havertz an improvement?
Yeah.
I'm of the belief that this summer, we need more of the Zinchenko Jesus impact of the summer before. Now, of course, long term, that's not proved quite as fruitful as we wanted, but more of that instant, we've added a midfielder and I see how we've elevated. We've added a left back and I see how we've added a forward and I see how we've elevated. I don't think we have time to bed in as quickly. So what are your expectations for this summer?
And I just say on those signings, I think it was obvious that all of them would have the impact that they did. I think Declan Rice, he was already on the verge of becoming a world-class player. So you know he's going to come in, he's going to add what we need. And obviously we saw that he did. I think Timber, if he hadn't have got injured, there was already... Manchester United, Ten Hag wanted him instead of Martinez, who's also a brilliant player. So you could see that Timber would come in and raise our level as well. Havertz, you could see that he was always going to struggle at the start because he scored 7 goals the season before playing up front for Chelsea. He obviously was never going to come in and be the man straight away.
Especially midfield.
Especially in midfield, playing out of position, or finding a new position. Don't get me wrong, as the season went on, he embedded into our system, he got better and better. And Raya, the problem with signing him is that we already had a keeper that was on a high level. So it's hard for a goalkeeper to come in and everyone be like, we had this great keeper, but this guy is the guy. Because as soon as he makes a mistake, it's like, we're looking at the other guy. So what we need to do this year is stay away from the Havertzes and the Ryers who aren't going to lift our level too much and go for the players that are more Declan Rice and Timber, that are wanted players, Like there's only a few clubs in the world who can go, we can sign that guy. Kind of the ceiling raisers, and obviously there could be a few floor raisers.
How many players
as well.
are buyable like that though?
It's
That's
tough.
The thing.
It's tough.
Declan Rice was available. We all knew that. I mean, West Ham made it difficult to bring him in, but we knew that he was... There was an agreement there that he was going to get this move. So I'll throw it over to you, Babs. What is the expectation for Edu on the selling front as well as the buying front?
Of course. I think now from selling point, we've got a position of power. Players that we have now, we don't have to sell. So that's why when teams come to buy them now, we can keep them next year. So if you want to sign them, you have to pay the premium. So we've got the advantage there. Also, we're a Champions League team now, so you get the premium from that as well. But in terms of what I expect from Edu and signings wise, I think last year Mikel changed the way he played, right? And that's why I think he looked at the year before that where we finished second and we kind of bottled it towards the end of the season. And he thought that style of play can't beat City over a 38-game season. So I need to change something. And this year we saw the change. And then the second half of the year, when it came into place, we won nearly every single game. So I think it's now doubling down on that system. We found the right system now. We know what works for us, and that works to get you a certain amount of points over the season. But now if you can just double down, add a few little 5% raises, you'll get to the 95-point margin. And that's where you win a title for me. I think that's what it is doubling down, whereas last year was a massive change. And that's why I think it took time for us. In the first half of the year, we weren't consistent. And I think that's the major reason behind that. So for me, a ceiling raiser is nice, but I don't see one obvious one. The year before, we knew Declan Rice was the one to go to. Who's the player now? Osimhen, I'm not quite sure.
Some sort of
Sheska's not on the market anymore. Is it a winger? Is it a midfielder? A lot of people are unsure. So that's why it's a bit more difficult this year. But I feel like it's possible. We don't need major changes. Just a little adaptation, a little bit more on the team, a little sprinkle something, and we can get there.
I actually love that quote when you just said we need to double down on what worked last year.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. Listen, for me, this is Edu's biggest summer because I think he needs to load up that kitty for Mikel Arteta by selling players. And we've got players that we can sell that have got value this time. If you sell a Ramsdale, if you sell Nketiah, you've got to get decent money for them so that Arteta's got as much money as possible to spend. I think Edu transfer in-wise has got a lot better over the last few years. You're not seeing Cedrics and Pablo Maris coming through the door. A lot of his transfers are working.
It's also to do with the level we're at, though. When we were signing those players,
you're down there, so you're in the bargain basement. But I just think
their job gets... Sorry to interrupt.
It's fine.
His job is getting easier the better the team is getting. It's just about crossing that hurdle of becoming the team we've now become. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I just think if he sells those players properly, it makes Arteta's job easier to go and get better players. Because like you said, we don't need 7 or 8 players this year. We need 2 or 3 that go into the starting 11. Timber is actually going to be, as Wenger used to say, like a new signing because he's played 45 minutes of football for us. So 2 or 3 game changers, couple of squad players, and I think we go again.
But we're not in a sell to buy situation, are we? Not that anyone here will have an eye on Arsenal's finances and know what's doable. But I'm just reading between the lines, and we were talking about this off camera with the Sesko stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of us weren't that surprised that the Sesko stuff came through as him signing a new deal. I think we've all covered Arsenal and transfers long enough that when that came through, I didn't have that like Mudryk punch in the gut. You know, when the Mudryk thing happened, I was like, he put us on his story. like with Sesko, something never felt right to me about it. But the rest of the summer, I'm not seeing that. You know, now reports are saying, well, Arsenal probably need to, let players go. You know, if Partey leaves, they might bring in a midfielder. I don't know if that's just let's let everyone know we have 40 million and then we buy Pepe for 72. That was quite a window. I just wonder whether Arsenal are going to just go big in the window and then let the sales take care of themselves after, or whether it's like you said, load it up, let's just spend the first month getting some players out the door, getting good money for players, and then we really go big for the targets. Because they might be saying to Mikel, option A, we try sell player A, B, C, and then we actually drop 120 million on Isak, because if that's what you want, we'll do it. It's you want to be ready for tour, you want to be ready for America, you want to just get this ready and everyone up to scratch. We're probably going for a Joshua Zirkzee then.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it works, by the way, sell to buy. Because if we get a lot of money, then clubs know we have money to spend, so they're going to raise the prices of their players.
That's a good point.
So we're definitely going to sign first. That's how we always do it. I do feel though it will be a bit slower because of the Euros. You know, we've not had a tournament mid-year for a while. Obviously the World Cup was in December. So for me, it's about whose price raises after that. We could have players that play for Arsenal right now have a good Euros. Imagine Kivio has a good Euros for Poland. Someone like that, and you can maybe get sold for higher money as well. So have to wait a little bit, but we definitely sign players before we sell.
You think? Really? You're really convinced about that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think what happened in January worries me a little bit. I think it was the quietest January we've ever seen. Teams weren't spending money. FFPs coming to, the clubs are getting in trouble. Could that have some effect on ins and outs this summer? Maybe we will have to sell to buy. Maybe we'll only be able to buy 1 or 2. Maybe it'll be lower fees. I don't know. But if you ask me, I think we need to spend 200 million, probably more than we bring in. So if we're going to sell 150, we've probably got to spend 350, something like that.
Wow.
Maybe in terms of what players are going to cost. Because if we're going for an Isak, it's probably going to be 120. If we're going for a Guimaraes, it's probably going to be 100. If we're going for any of these players, the prices are going to be so inflated as well, because these teams will need to. I don't know. It can work both ways. Maybe they'll need to sell, so it'll be cheaper. Maybe they'll need to sell, but we know that they're selling.
Sure,
I think we need to sign 200 million, roughly 200 million's worth of players. Now, if we sell 200 million pounds worth of players, which would be incredible, we've got Carl Hein leaving for 45. But, if we were to sell 200 million. As long as I'm happy with the sales, I don't mind if saying 200 million pounds worth of players coming in, because I just see it as the squad has numbers. Like, we can play Odegaard, Partey, Rice, Vieira, Jorginho, Smith Rowe. Now, those 3 are obviously nowhere near as good as the 3 I've mentioned before, but there's good players in their own right in there, or players that you could see having a part to play for Arsenal next season. But if it's a case of Smith Rowe moves out for 50 million, imagine that gets done. Okay, let's be more realistic, 35, and we buy a really good 35 million pound player in midfield. What I'm trying to say, I'm not really asked about the prices. I'm just, as long as the quality's there, I don't really care about the net spend so much.
This is where I worry though. Is there a 35 million pound player that's going to raise our floor?
Well, and I'm being unrealistic. You're right. I'm being unrealistic.
No, but I
mean
get
in
what you're
terms
saying.
of the net spend, I'm not so bothered if actually
100%.
it turns out our net spend was only 50, 60, 70 million at the end.
Yeah.
But I just need to see the quality coming in for the quality going out.
But that's what I'm saying about January and FFP and all of these things. I look at 2 players costing at least 170 million. Like, to raise our floor and raise our ceiling, that's almost what it's going to cost. So maybe it is only bringing in 1 or 2 players and letting 2 or 3 players go. Like, I think a lot of people are hopeful there's going to be 4 or 5 signings and they're all going to be top players, but I just don't think it's going to be like that.
Well, Arsenal don't really operate like that, do they? Don't often have that. I think they were saying we made like 100 million from the Champions League as well, from getting so far in it and stuff. So we should have money available.
Yeah. I think coming second in the Prem was a lot of money as well.
I did see some financial breakdowns that were saying that Arsenal are in a healthy position, but there were also reports last summer saying Kudus was waiting. Now,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
confirmed those reports are, but there were, some reliable reports saying Kudus was waiting. Arsenal
do it.
wanted to do a deal, but they couldn't. They were waiting to see if sales would trigger it.
That was after we signed Havertz for 65, Rice for 100, Raya as well, Timber
Yeah.
as well. So it was after quite a few
We can't
signings.
quite play.
Yeah.
We can't afford
Yeah,
Kudus.
we couldn't quite spend 300 million.
You know,
pounds, we just
Football
got
Manager,
200.
you like request more transfer funds.
Yeah, had quite a lot in
They
there.
always tell me
But
no.
yeah, no, I definitely feel like we've got money to spend for sure. We've earned it over the last season, and we're in a healthier position to also attract those players as well. We can't just put the money on the table and not want them to come. See, Chelsea all the time, but we can put the money forwards and sign the player as well. But I'm just thinking of who is that 80, 90, 100 million pound signing that's actually available. Rice was available last year. That's people forget that he was actually available to go and get.
Yeah, he was.
If you want Rafael Leao, who's unavailable, you have to go above and beyond, which might be above 100 million pounds. So the only player that looks like that is Victor Osimhen, and
Yeah.
even then, a lot of people aren't convinced. So I think Arsenal will make a few signings. I don't think there will be an 80, 90 million pound signing. It might be a few 60 million pound signings. And I feel like seeing a major change in the first team is not what I want either. I think the team is very good as it is. It's just a few little pieces. I don't want to see
If we don't make a
first team
major
starters.
signing this summer, I would worry, because I look at us. I think we've got superstar defenders. I think we've got superstar midfielders. We don't have a superstar striker.
Yeah.
You could argue Saka is becoming the superstar winger, but I think we're just missing that
I hear it.
top quality striker that scares
agree.
defenders. you
That's
know.
the position I'd want to go big on.
Yeah,
It has
that
to be
front
the
line.
summer the way Arteta bolsters his attack. We've seen him bring in hella defenders.
Yeah.
We've seen him bring in midfielders that he wants. We've only really seen him bring in Jesus, who was game changing and then had his injury. So
Yeah.
I think maybe a left winger and a striker. I think that's where the money has to
I think,
go.
I look at the area where we need a superstar the most. So we talk about striker. I actually look more at left wing. I think that's a bigger position because I think with Martinelli's form last year, it kind of concerned me. And even the fact that Mikel Arteta wanted to spend 70 million pounds on Mudryk from Ukraine, right?
know.
It's crazy.
The thing is,
quite forget
what
that.
do you
And-
do with Trossard and Martinelli if you buy an
Yeah.
expensive left
I feel
winger?
with
That's
Trossard's, the
problem.
benefit he has is the fact that he can play centrally as well.
Yeah.
And he's versatile. And even Martinelli, we saw at the final game of the season, can play on the right hand side. So there's players there as well. But I feel like if we're going to sign a superstar, it might just be a winger over a striker right now because I don't see Osimhen as a guarantee because of his injury record. I think last year he missed 10, 15 games again. So if I want to sign a £100 million player, I want Declan Rice. I want guaranteed he's available and he's a great player. And
I know
that's what
we're
I'm
doing
saying.
another video.
We're doing another
I
show,
wanna
so
go
don't
into-
say too-
I'm just interested to who it would
Well,
be.
you're going to all find out very, very
Mbappe.
soon because we are going to which one? Because we are going to make a list of 5 players in the next video that we want Arsenal to sign, that we think Arsenal must get done to win the title, and then we'll be debating the outgoings and price we could get for them as well. So a bit of a transfers in and out, a little bit of advice for Eddie. I'm sure he sat there wondering, I wonder what they're thinking
Yeah, 100%.
before he gets. So he's probably sat there. I'm just waiting for their video to drop before I make my list. But there we go. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed this. Can I just say a big, big thank you to the amazing panel who've come together to have a big discussion around what we want from next season, what we expect for next season, and what we've got to do now to get ready for next season. Big thank you to Christian Ty. Do you know what? Turkish hates them, but round of applause for Christian Ty. No, we're not going to.
Okay.
No, just clap.
Oh, no, I thought you was joking. Yeah,
No, I'm being deadly serious. Round of
Okay.
applause for
All right,
Christian
fair
Ty.
We should clap it. It's nice to clap
Yeah.
it.
All right, fair
Round
enough.
of applause for Babs. You're brilliant as well.
Well done, Bob.
Applause for Curtis.
Cheers, mate. No, you stopped clapping as you said, me.
Okay, round of applause for James.
We have this thing on watch alongs
Gentlemen.
where I always get a round of applause at the start of a watch along, and Turkish looks at me like, "Why are you clapping?"
It's nice,
Yeah.
man.
Like, well, I'm just like, just you
Turkish,
know,
he loves to be anti, innit? So it's nice thing to do. Why not?
I just a clap just fuels everything. But I just realised the video's ended, so there's no point fueling it. Anyway, guys, big thanks to everyone. Go subscribe to everyone's channels as well. We're going to put them in the links in the description below as well. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to AFTV and look out for a little bit of extra content from the 4 of us coming out very soon on the channel as well. In a bit.